Most people know about anime, which refers to all 2D animation that comes out of Japan. And nowadays, it's common knowledge that Japan has the best 2D animation around. It used to be America when Disney was pumping out masterpiece after masterpiece, unlike now. But what if I were to tell you that a whole country has slowly been gaining progress in both 2D and 3D animation? China. All of these clips are taken directly from Chinese anime, also known as donghua, and most of these are funded and produced by Bilibili, basically the Chinese version of YouTube. You might have heard of or watched Link Click, or maybe you saw this beautiful opening to a donghua recommended to you on YouTube. But wait, before we talk about all the amazing donghua, we need to go back in time to when Chinese animation was just starting. So basically there were these four brothers. These guys are known as the Wan brothers, and they revolutionized animation in China. Then they dropped the first ever Asian animated movie, Princess Iron Fan. This was based on a part of the Journey to the West, and it instantly became a huge success across the globe. Oh, you don't think this looks interesting or relevant? Well, you see this guy? Yeah, that's Osamu Tezuka, the creator of Astro Boy and literally considered to be the father of manga. He cites Princess Iron Fan as the sole reason that he even wanted to make anime. Now, don't get it twisted. Disney was still the GOAT at this time, and apparently Tezuka watched Bambi over 80 times, which is like, okay, that's a little weird. But basically, Chinese animation was definitely on the map at this point, and it directly led to donghua's golden age. T-Wei was a part of this age, and would make some insanely popular works like The Proud General and Crows Are Black, which was so good that it actually ended up winning a film festival in Venice. But then, everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. In 1966, Mao Zedong ramped up the Cultural Revolution and led the CCP to take absolute control of mainland China. Even though T-Wei literally started his career by making some of the greatest Chinese animated movies, the CCP said that his work didn't reflect the struggles of the working class enough. And so, over the course of a year, he was deprived of his sleep, was forced to write self-criticisms about himself, and was severely beaten. Then they exiled him to the countryside. Let that sink in. They basically forced Chinese Walt Disney into the rice fields and told him to f**k off. Now, obviously, cracking down on art like this has serious repercussions for the medium and the entire industry. And now, China was in a dark age for its animation. Things started looking better after Mao's death, since restrictions were somewhat lifted, and T-Wei actually ended up making a few more classics, but it just wasn't enough to keep China relevant, and a lot of the potential money and budget for these movies were slashed by CCP policies. And Chinese studios just found it more profitable to work as offshore freelancers for Japanese anime studios. But then the internet happened. For a lot of people, flash games and animation were a huge part of their upbringing and just online culture in general, and this was no different in China. In 2001, a series of flash animations named Zhao Zhao would forever change the internet. Zhao Zhao was huge in China, but it was also huge across the world. Today, the series has amassed over 50 million views. I don't know if you guys also grew up scrolling Flipnote Hatena as a kid, but I swear these stick fight animations were everywhere and I loved them. I don't know if Zhao Zhao was the first to do this, but it definitely was one of the most influential, and it started a trend of amazing fight sequences with insane sakuga. Simple stick figure fights started to spread like wildfire over the internet, and China was at the forefront of it. Now, it's important to remember that China was still lacking in commercial donghua movies and TV shows at this point, but I believe that web series like Zhao Zhao forever changed the trajectory of Chinese animation. And that brings us to today, where most modern donghua TV series are actually just posted on sites like Bilibili. But despite the animation department being so dormant for many years, it feels like these donghua web series have some of the best 2D animation I've ever seen. And my theory for why they're so good is that China just has a lot of hidden talent waiting to show off. The country has a ton of experience doing freelance animation work for other countries, and combined with the flash animation boom in the 2000s, it's easy to see why they might be able to make a comeback today. And I'm sure after hearing all this history on Chinese animation, you want to jump right into some of the best donghua. And if this is your first time exploring the medium, I would highly recommend Fog Hill of the Five Elements. The best way to describe this donghua is probably like if you took Demon Slayer and just made it more Chinese. There's tons of cool historical references, and the animation is insane. The fight sequences are genuinely some of the best I've ever seen. It's like they strapped the cameraman onto a roller coaster. The animation doesn't feel constrained at all, it's so dynamic and free-flowing, and the sound effects sell you on the action so well. Every punch feels like it just sends the characters across the entire map. And while the art style is definitely a little more simplistic, and sometimes doesn't really hold up during dialogue or slower points, it does work really well, and it kind of ends up just feeling like a stylistic choice. Now, don't get it twisted. The show isn't all just flowers and rainbows. You know, in the first season, like this guy literally watches his baby brother die in front of his eyes in a surprisingly emotional scene.
哥，我想再吃一口红果。
有，哥买了很多，想吃多少就有多少。
And the nice thing about the first season is that it's only 3 episodes long, so definitely give this one a try. Now, there's a funny story about the next donghua I'm going to talk about. I just randomly got recommended this Chinese anime opening, and when I checked it out, my mind was blown. Spare Me Great Lord is a donghua based on a manhwa. No, not the Korean kind. These are Chinese webtoons. And it's set in a world where people are getting awakenings to certain powers. Kind of like solo leveling. And just like solo leveling, the main character gets an awakening that gives him a menu screen.
Hell no, man. What the fuck, man?
Now hang on. What's interesting about this donghua and what really sets it apart is how the menu works, right? By causing negative emotions in people around him, our main character basically gets credits. And with these credits, he can buy stuff from the shop or spin a wheel to get gacha. And just like any responsible man, he immediately gambles all of his social credits away. This series is pretty similar to solo leveling because it's an overpowered accumulation type of show. So if you enjoy your anime power fantasies, but with a main character that's just pissing people off to get more social credits, I would highly recommend this. And of course, the animation goes hard when it needs to. But lastly, we need to talk about Link Click. This is easily the most popular donghua to come out, and you might have already heard it or watched it, but I need to talk about it. The story is essentially about 2 hot Asian boys solving mysteries and helping people out by going back in time. But the catch is they can only go back in time to when a picture was taken in the body of whoever took the photo. And through this, they basically help people out, whether that be finding a missing ingredient for a dish, all the way to solving a literal murder mystery case. And the premise is super strong. Every single episode ends with a cliffhanger that just makes you want to keep watching. But I do have one issue, and this seems to be a problem with a lot of donghua, but the English subtitles can sometimes be confusing. Now, to be fair, I am watching fan subs, but I believe that this is because Chinese is just difficult to translate. There's more nuance in the language. From what I understand, Chinese is a monosyllabic language. That means that sometimes every syllable can be an entire word. This makes translating some of these scenes really difficult.
靠什么样的实力一剑斩出这种自信？
我想我不会接受，因为我的成长。
The dialogue will have a ton of hidden meaning that we just can't understand. Unfortunately, there isn't enough time or even sometimes space on the screen to have the subtitles explain everything. And because there's a lack of popularity among these donghua, a lot of them are fan subbed, and we end up with really hard to understand plot lines because of it. If these donghua got a proper dub, I would watch them in a heartbeat if I could enjoy the story better. And that's partly why I made this video. I want this medium to get the recognition that it deserves. But wait, I still feel like there's one more thing that's holding donghua back, and this is probably its biggest flaw. From what I understand, the government has to make sure that shows are appropriately censored. This applies not only to donghua, but literally any Chinese TV show in general. Obviously, we've seen that China will censor certain content, but a line that can never be crossed seems to be politics. Any sort of criticisms on culture could potentially get the studio immediately disbanded. And personally, I think when art is stifled like this, it can't reach its peak. I feel like I needed to say that if I'm going to talk about Chinese anime and Chinese arts in general. But that doesn't take away from the fact that donghua has come a long way since Princess Iron Fan. And because of the internet, we finally get to see all of China's amazing animation. I just hope that the government doesn't creatively restrict their people like it has in the past, but lets them create what they really want to create. If you're wondering why this video took so long to come out, it's because I've been addicted to Poke Rogue, so you can check me out on Twitch. I'll be playing that a lot. And yeah, see ya.